Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we're going over the cars and brands that are most likely going to see the biggest discounts towards the end of this year. Before we get into this video though, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. And then if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. Let's get into it. Now, before we dive into the video, I do need to put a quick disclaimer at the beginning stating that this is just my educated guess as to what vehicles and brands are going to have discounts based on the sales trends that these brands are currently experiencing. And so obviously got to put that at the beginning, but now let's dive into it. So to make things easy for all of you, we're going to do things alphabetically by brand. So that means we're going to start with Acura. So with the Acura MDX and the Acura TLX, I do see more incentives being put on those vehicles in the future because those vehicles are starting to stack up on dealer lots. Dealerships are already discounting those vehicles, but I see a potential for bigger discounts from the manufacturer, maybe some special lease rates. Alfa Romeo, this is a pretty interesting situation. So if it's a quadrifoglio, those are still selling relatively well, but the regular four-cylinder cars, they're not really selling all that well. Dealers are already discounting the product quite a bit, but I do see potential for manufacturer incentives there. Audi, this one's confusing. So Audi's having a really good year this year, but at the same time, there's certain product that's starting to, somewhat stack up on dealer lots, but they still don't have a massive amount of inventory. So I do see potential for some discounts on, A cars and S cars, but on RS cars, I wouldn't expect anything anytime soon. And some RS cars are still going for over MSRP. The next one's BMW. Now, pretty much everything in the BMW brand at this point is getting discounted except for some of the M cars like the M2 and the M3 that are still really popular. And I expect BMW to start releasing more special lease rates and everything in the future. Buick. This one's kind of weird. So Buick is a brand that has been kind of like struggling for quite some time, but this year they're actually having a really good year. And when it comes to inventory, well, it's kind of a mixed bag. Some dealers have a lot of inventory, some dealers don't. And so I think there's going to be potential for dealer discount. I don't think the manufacturer is going to do too much right now. Cadillac is a similar story. I do see potential on some of the Cadillacs that are not selling as well. I think like XT4, XT5 are kind of struggling a little bit right now. But, Escalade, for example, don't expect any discounts on that anytime soon. And that leaves us into another GM brand, or leads us rather, Chevrolet. So outside of their half-ton trucks, they're actually doing a really good job in terms of managing inventory levels. And so I don't see discounts being put on anything outside of the half-ton trucks where things have slowed down a little bit. When it comes to Chrysler, this one's kind of weird. It just depends on the region you're in. In certain regions here in the US, the product's super hot and it sells really well. In other regions it doesn't. So I think there could be some regional discounts on some of the Chrysler products, especially like the 300, for example, which apparently they're going to continue to build that. Dodge, this is one where, basically outside of the Durango, there's probably not going to be discounts, but the Durango, I do see some discounts being put on that. Fiat, they're pretty much out of the US market at this point. Ford is the next one. So with Ford, similar to Chevy, I do see some discounts being put on the half-ton trucks that just aren't selling. It seems like those continue to stack up on dealer lots. And, Ford is just, in general, having, bigger and bigger inventory levels as time goes on. And so we could see some discounts, on other vehicles as well. And I've noticed that Ford's, been more open to discounting the product outside of the specialty stuff like Raptors and everything. And then the next one is Genesis. So I definitely foresee there being a pretty high chance of some discounts on the electric side of things with Genesis because, there's just been a big pullback from EVs in general here in the US market. And so I think that there's chance for discounts on those. But on the regular Genesis products like G70, GV80, all that kind of stuff, probably not. There might be some dealer discounts on some of the cars that are taking a little bit longer to sell, but I don't see the manufacturer doing anything too crazy. GMC, again, similar story to the other truck makers. So basically the half-ton trucks, there's probably going to be something, but the rest of their product lineup, it's frankly doing really well, and they're doing really well this year anyways, so not much there. Honda, yeah, we're just gonna skip that. Just kidding. So with Honda, outside of the Ridgeline and the Passport, I don't really see there being any discounts with the product. Those are the two vehicles that, it seems like there's some struggles to sell them, but it's actually not too bad. But Honda overall is still pretty constrained, and so I just wouldn't expect anything with that brand anytime soon. When it comes to Hyundai, similar to Genesis, the electric stuff, I definitely see more discount being put on that because electric cars are just struggling. But with the rest of their cars, I think it's just going to kind of go back to business as usual, where there's definitely not going to be markups on the cars, but there's probably not going to be huge incentives on it. But Hyundai's just going to make sure to keep their prices in line to where it just makes sense, so they don't have to put incentives on them. The next one is Infiniti. This one's really weird. So Infiniti is actually having a really good year this year. It's usually a brand that they have to discount the product quite a bit, but I think that this year we're probably not going to see anything, unless outside of like maybe the cars, some of the dealers might discount those, because sometimes, like Q60, for example, they struggle to sell in certain areas. Jaguar. This one's very, very interesting. So they're kind of like trimming down when it comes to overall volume. It seems like the focus is on the Land Rover brand and not on the Jaguar brand. And so, I think that there's probably not going to be discounts because there's not going to be a lot of inventory. But at the same time, there are certain cars like the F-Type, for example, that just sit on dealer lots. And so there could be some discounts to be had there. Jeep, this is one that already has discounts, and they've already said that they're not going to increase their prices, like they're doing a price freeze on the product, but I do foresee there being some bigger discounts if inventory levels still stay where they're at, because there are several Jeep models that have over 200 or have an over 200-day supply. So yeah, I think there's going to be more discounts from the manufacturer with that. The next one is Kia. So pretty similar situation to Hyundai, but also not. For some reason, Kia is struggling with inventory more so than Hyundai. I guess the product's just more popular, even though it's the same manufacturer. And so I just wouldn't expect any discounts on pretty much anything. Maybe the EVs again, so like the EV6 and then the Niro EV, those might have some discounts, because again, those are not really selling all that well anymore. And then that leads us into Land Rover. There's not going to be anything here. Maybe the smaller ones like the Discovery and the Discovery Sport and all that. Or the Discovery's not super small, but basically Defender, full size, and Range Rover Sport, there's definitely not going to be any discounts on those. But the smaller ones, there might be. But at the same time, the manufacturer, it seems like they're pulling back and just using their resources to build the bigger ones that are still selling with that particular brand. Lexus, this is one that is pretty interesting, because if you look at Toyota, they have like no cars, but Lexus dealers, they're starting to have like not a massive amount of inventory, but they've got some inventory available. And so I do see a chance of there being some discounts on that product in the near future. I don't think it's going to be huge, but I think there is potential for something. And then that leads us into Lincoln. This is interesting because Lincoln's not having a great year this year for some reason. They've got a refreshed the Corsair, I think, is coming out, and then they've got the Nautilus that they're also doing a refresh on it. I don't pay too much attention with that particular brand. I film the cars, but outside of that, I don't dive into it too much. So I do think that just like Ford, there's probably going to be some more discounts on it, because again, they're just not having a great. Ford's having a great year, but Lincoln for some reason isn't having as good of a year. And then this leads us into Mazda. So this is kind of a mixed bag. So Mazda's having a really good year this year, but at the same time, it seems like Mazda's been able to ramp up production to a pretty good level, to where dealers have enough inventory that they're starting to kind of compete with each other for customers with that particular brand. And at the same time, Toyota and Honda, although they still have constrained inventories, they're starting to build up enough that some of the people that were buying Mazdas because they couldn't get a Toyota or Honda might go back to those two brands. So it'd be interesting to see. I don't think there's going to be huge discounts on the product. I think it's for the most part probably going to still sell for close to MSRP with most of the vehicles, but there is potential with some of the models, like maybe like the CX-50, for example, and the CX-5, where I feel like I've just been seeing a lot of the inventory stack up, and we'll see how well the new CX-90 sells. It seems like it's doing really good so far, especially the plug-in hybrid. Mercedes-Benz, this one's just going to depend on the product. So the EVs, they're already being discounted a massive amount, and they're still not selling. Mercedes is actually buying back some of the EVs from dealers because that's how bad the sales pace is with them. But outside of the EVs, the rest of the product, it's still selling really well, so I don't think there's going to be any discounts to be had there. Mini, this is just a strange brand. It's a smaller niche brand, and it really just depends on what's happening in the economy. When things are good, people buy Minis. When things are not so good, because Mini is like, it's an enthusiast car, and so I see that just like BMW, there's definitely going to be some discounts on the product as the economy, if the economy continues to worsen. Mitsubishi, this is an interesting one. So if it's an affordable Mitsubishi, like an Outlander Sports or Mirage, there's not going to be any discounts because they're already super inexpensive and they're sold out. But the Outlander, and especially the Outlander plug-in hybrid, I see there being some pretty substantial discounts on those in the future, because like the plug-in hybrids, they're just not selling right now. And the thing that's crazy is Mitsubishi just keeps building more and more of them, and it's like you need to build the cars that people are actually buying, which again is like the Mirage and the Outlander Sports. So like what I hear from Mitsubishi dealers is like, if we had Mirages and Outlander Sports, we would have people that would buy them. But anyways, next one is Nissan, which obviously they're partnered up with Mitsubishi. They're having a really good year this year, and you know, it just depends on the product. So with the big trucks and SUVs, they're actually still doing relatively okay, but there is some inventory buildup there, so I do see some potential for discounts on those. And then on the really affordable cars like the Sentra and the Versa, probably not, because that particular segment in the car industry is still really hot. So it's just going to depend on the product. I don't foresee there being enormous discounts yet, because Nissan's kept their prices relatively reasonable compared to their competitors. I mean, you look at a Nissan Titan, for example, it is significantly less expensive than an F-150, Ram 1500, all the other trucks in the segment, and so there's not really as much reason for Nissan to discount their product. And then that leads us over to Porsche, and this one is actually pretty interesting. So they have a pretty big inventory buildup with Macans and Cayennes, the SUVs, but the sports cars, you still can't touch them. And so I think there's going to be some potential for some lease specials, maybe some discounts on the SUVs, but with the sports cars, probably not anytime soon, because they're still sold out for years on a lot of the models. Ram, similar situation to Jeep, but just, I guess, not as bad in a sense, because their sales figures aren't down by as much. And also a similar situation to Ford and GM and Chevrolet, where the half-ton trucks, definitely some discounts. The 2500 series trucks also, those are probably going to have some pretty heavy discounts in the future, because they're just not selling. The 3500s are still selling reasonably well. And then next one is Rivian. They're probably not going to increase their prices, I imagine, but at the same time they might have to, because of material cost and production cost and all that kind of stuff. So that one's, it's too soon to tell, but I do think that if, this is just my personal opinion, I do think that if Rivian wants to continue the sales pace, they should probably not increase the prices in their vehicles again. Subaru, it's going to be a case-by-case basis with this particular brand. WRXs, they're doing better this year than they did last year, but it seems like they're still kind of stacking up in inventory. And then also Outbacks as well. I've noticed there's a lot of Outbacks, which is kind of strange to me, because that's like the bread and butter for Subaru, and then Ascents as well. So I think there's potential for discounts on those. But you know, Imprezas, Crosstreks, Foresters, those are still really hot because they're super affordable. I don't think that's there's gonna be anything there. The next one is Tesla. So Tesla's obviously already done a bunch of price cuts this year, and I don't see this stopping anytime soon when it comes to the price cuts, because like I said, the electric world, it is growing this year is what it looks like, but at the same time, there's been a huge contraction in interest with fully electric vehicles. And so if Tesla wants to, you know, sell more cars, they're probably just going to have to discount cars more to like make it a no-brainer type situation to purchase their product. Toyota, I kind of mentioned throughout the video, they're still constrained with inventory, but you know, with the new Tacoma being announced and everything, there is potential that if there are leftover 23 Tacomas, there might be some discounts. But at the same time, there's probably gonna be a lot of people that are going to dive in and buy 23 Tacomas, because the new one has a turbocharged engine, and they're, you know, Toyota people, they are all about reliability, and so there's a lot of people that are gonna be like, yep, got to get this one now before the new one comes out, because I don't want that turbocharged crap, right? And then Volkswagen, this one's really kind of confusing. So I shouldn't say really confusing, but kind of is at the same time. So their electric ID4, that's not really selling all that well, because most electric cars just aren't selling all that well right now. But you know, their affordable cars, they're still doing pretty well in this market, because a lot of people are looking for affordable vehicles. The larger ones, they're also actually doing pretty well, so I don't think there's going to be huge discounts, but I do think there are going to be some discounts to be had on the Volkswagen product. Again, I think that's going to be kind of more back to what it used to be prior to the pandemic. And then Volvo is the next one. So Volvo's actually had a pretty big inventory level buildup over the course of like the last 6 months roughly. And so I do think that there is going to be some potential for discounts on that, because what happened during the pandemic is a lot of people started purchasing Volvos because they couldn't get a Mercedes or an Audi or a BMW because of supply. And now all those people are going back to Audi, BMW, and Mercedes. And so you've had kind of like a pullback from the Volvo brand. They're still having a better year this year compared to last year, which is good. But at the same time, I do think there's going to be potential for discounts, because Volvo's been able to ramp up production, and so there's just more cars available. So hopefully this overview of a lot of different car brands and some individual cars helped you out. I want you guys to let me know what car you're looking into most, and what discount are you looking for to get you to pull the trigger on the particular car that you're looking at. I'll see you.